Hey, I can't really send them a wedding gift, and I just found out at the last minute that Vegan Gains and his girlfriend are getting married. The video is up today, so congratulations to them. Of course, I'm happy for them. I think everyone who's followed Vegan Gains for a while feels that his life has, become a lot more positive, or his outlook on life has become a lot more positive since the start of that relationship. I do actually know his girlfriend, Jasmine. We chat within Facebook and email and that kind of thing. And Jasmine just mentioned it in passing. I forget. I told her about something interesting, and she said, "Oh, great! I'll look into it after the wedding." But we're getting married in the next few days. I said, "Oh, wow, okay." My spontaneous reaction to her at the time is, I said, marriage is a great institution. It provides you with both food and sex, and any institution that provides you with both of those things really deserves your undying loyalty. And I back this up by saying, if there were a library that provided me not only with books, but also with food and sex, I would be the most loyal and devoted follower of that library. So any institution that provides you with both food and sex, I am pretty much a fan of. Richard, I'm happy for you. Obviously, we've kind of seen you turn over one new leaf after another. And I met Richard because I criticized him. I had some, I think, respectful and meaningful criticisms of his work, but I didn't really assume we'd ever become friends. I thought we'd end up always being on opposite sides of vegan activism, of endorsing very different approaches to veganism. But instead, to my surprise, we really have become friends, which is great. Partly because we're both Canadians, so our activism in both cases will really always be linked to Canada. There was a time when, even though I was a critic of Richard, kind of politically within veganism, when I was actually known for defending his sanity, when people really thought that Richard was insane. And partly because of my own background in the theater, and partly because of my own background in Toronto, and my sense of what's normal for former hockey players in Toronto. No shade. I always felt that Richard was actually psychologically normal, and that people were overlooking the extent to which he was really portraying a fictional character. He was acting out sketches and scenes and working with a script, and they were assuming that he was insane on the basis of his performance in these fictional scenarios. So, with that, Richard is one example, and the other person I stuck up for that way was Saoirse Morava. And in both cases, years later, really people have written in to agree with me. There have been people who've said to me, with Saoirse a couple months later, they said, "I thought you were crazy at the time. I didn't know why you were defending Saoirse." They were convinced that Saoirse was an evil idiot or insane or what have you. And then they later realized that no, Saoirse really was portraying a fictional character, and there's a gap between what we do on camera and who we are in real life. And likewise with Vegan Gains, people have sometimes said to me months later or years later, they realized that I'm right, and that they were drawing up psychological conclusions about this guy on the basis of jokes, on the basis of him acting out scenes. And there's a very obvious sense in which that's either not who he really is, or that's not the whole of who he really is. That's not his whole character. Of course, it's funny and touching for me. Vegan Gains and his girlfriend, they got married in hoodies. They got married in matching hoodies. They didn't get dressed up at all. They didn't even wear a suit or what have you. So it reminded me of the informality of my own legal wedding. But when I had my marriage, when I had the legal wedding, we did that in France, and neither one of us had any friends in that part of France. So it wasn't really a party like that marriage. It was mostly legal procedure, and then we wanted to separately have a party where friends and colleagues would be able to attend. I remember one of the things that stood out. So we did have a dinner. We did have a dinner afterward that was held at a restaurant that had never heard of veganism, that had never thought about veganism before. But we went and we talked to them, and it was the one restaurant where the chef confirmed that yes, he could make a vegan wedding cake. And so on the strength of that recommendation, he made a whole vegan meal for us. But the cake was crucial. And the staff in this restaurant were just freaked out. It was a high-end, fancy restaurant with a beautiful view of the ocean in France. I didn't find the food particularly impressive, but hey, I'm sure that restaurant will always be very successful just because they have a beautiful view of the ocean. But I remember how all the waiters were just elated. They were just freaking out. They had never seen a vegan cake before. They didn't think this was possible. This was a cake with no eggs and no dairy, and it had tropical fruit cut up on it. So we got the experience of freaking out the entire restaurant with our vegan ways after our own legal ceremony. So yeah, Vegan Gains, it's got to be one of the most unlikely romances on YouTube, maybe of all time. And I think a lot of us are going to look back at this and think, wow, so our list of ultimate YouTube power couples will now never happen. Vegan Gains plus Sniper Wolf could have been the ultimate YouTube power couple. Vegan Gains plus Natalie Tran, aka Community Channel. She's in the multi-million YouTube follower club. We could have had in a parallel universe some really hilarious pairings for Vegan Gains. But no, ladies, he's off the market.